As we continue to face COVID-19, we're now facing flu season. Influenza has the potential to infect millions, putting lives and the healthcare system at risk. Now more than ever, it's essential to protect yourself from influenza by getting the flu vaccine. The flu vaccine is safe and effective and can't give you the flu. To protect yourself and those at highest risk, get your flu vaccine. Learn more at michigan.gov/flu. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
There's nothing more special than a gift that says, I get you. This Valentine's Day, a lovingly crafted piece from Pandora Jewelry is the perfect way to celebrate the people you love. Like style-shining statement pieces for your partners in crime, sparkling stones for mom, and collectible charms that honor moments and memories. Or show yourself some love with new styles of necklaces, earrings, rings, and bracelets that make every day your own personal holiday. Visit a Pandora Jewelry store near you or shop online at pandora.net. Hello, and welcome to episode 39 of Real Life Ghost Stories.
Hiya!
First things first this week, we need to thank our newest Patreon subscribers.
Thank you so much.
So we would like to thank Cassie Ingram,
Kristen Smith,
Elliot Sanders,
Jenna,
Barbara Perry,
Katie,
Catastrophe,
Sharon Liu,
Alexandria Reyes,
Robert M,
Leah Polton Barrick,
Emma Lee,
Katie Poe,
Ian Mearns,
Callan Stoker.
Teresa.
I believe that was Terastaya. Interesting story behind that, but we'll come to it in a second. Christina
Pugliese.
We're really struggling today. And finally, this is your one.
Gwen Bowery.
I'm really sorry. We are struggling with those this week. Catastrophe is my first story. Catastrophe is a Instagram account that makes and sells cat toys. And the second one is that Terastaya, I had to look up, is actually Finnish for butcher. So there you go. Thank you all so much for your Patreon pledges this week.
Yeah.
We are forever indebted to you and love you all so much, and hope you are enjoying your extra episodes.
And also, we would like to apologise for butchering your names.
Yeah, I'm just not very good at reading, okay? Our review this week is Haunting. Haunting was released in 1999. It has 4.9 out of 10 on IMDb. And 16% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Get lost, Rotten Tomatoes. It's definitely not that bad.
Would you like a synopsis?
Yes.
This horror tale focuses on visitors to the secluded mansion of Hill House, who have been called to the isolated location by Dr. David Marrow, played by Liam Neeson, as part of a study on insomnia. However, Marrow is really investigating fear, and he plans to scare the subjects, including the introverted Nell and the seductive Theo. Unfortunately for Marrow and everyone staying at Hill House, the manor is actually haunted by an evil spirit out to torment its guests. What were your thoughts on this one?
Do you know what? I really liked it, but not for the reasons I normally like horror movies. I felt like I was watching like a good family film rather than
it's very Disney, and we both at the same time were like, this feels a bit like a Disney film. It really does. It's not really that scary. It has a couple of...
There's like 2 jump scares.
Yeah, it has a couple of jump scares and has a really gruesome moment of a beheading, which becomes a bit out of nowhere. But other than that, it kind of is just a family film.
Yeah. I liked it because it was all like having a little nod to the Haunted of Hill House with the naming of the characters. And...
Yeah, and the fact that it's obviously called Hill House.
Yeah.
And you've got Nell and Theo, and they're the Crane family, and...
Yeah, the family that
used to live in the house, yeah. In terms of it being a scary film, it is not.
It's not a scary film.
It really isn't.
It's not, but it's a nice little... I like it. I thought it was a nice little film that you could watch if you've got kids that sort of 12 and up.
Yeah, I think for like, yeah.
It's a family film, really.
It is
Well, it's
really
not,
a family
but
film.
It's like a slightly...
And it's full
tense.
of like clean scares. There's nothing really in it that would, traumatize your children for life. But if you're looking for a good horror film to watch, I wouldn't recommend it.
No, it's definitely not a good horror. It's not good for scares. It's not going to leave you feeling, oh my word.
No,
so
it really
petrified.
isn't.
But I don't actually think that's what it was going for. I don't think it's pitched at the average horror viewer. I think it might just be trying to segue itself into like a more niche market.
Yeah, potentially. But there was a massive inconsistency that you spotted in the film. Can you remember what it was?
Yeah, so it's the I'm going to we're going to spoil this for you because it's not that good a film. It kind of turns out that Nell, he's pretty much the lead protagonist.
And is also a fucking moron.
And has got a really irritating voice, but that's beside
Yep.
the point. Reveals that she is the great-granddaughter of the wife of Hugh Crane.
Yeah.
However, the key bit of the story is that this woman never had any surviving children. They all died.
Yeah.
So if all of her children died, how is Nell the great-grandchild?
Yeah, definitely didn't think that one through,
No,
did they?
no.
They really didn't. But there's very little to say about it. I mean, it's got Owen Wilson in it being Owen Wilson.
Yeah.
It's got Liam Neeson in it being Liam Neeson, being very shouty. And then it's got Catherine Zeta-Jones being a little sex
Provocative,
kitten.
yeah.
And that's it. And they all have different sort of reactions to what's going on in the house. The house is insane. The animation is awful.
No,
because
it's not. I don't actually think.
1999.
No, I don't actually think it is. I think
It
that
is.
I think it's not good in relation to modern day, but I think if you compare it side by side to other 1999 stuff that uses animation, not animatronics, because I know you said talk about Jurassic Park, but actual CGI rather than animatronic animals, I think is actually right. It's quite smooth looking.
Yeah, okay, right. I'll
It's rendered well, I think, is why I like it.
I'll rescind that statement because I have to remember that it is 1999. But it does have a lot of lovely nods to Haunting of Hill House, the novel.
The house itself is spectacular.
The house is beautiful, but there are moments that are very Beauty and the Beast, which I found really funny. But, if you're looking for something with a horror film to watch with kind of not little kids, but maybe like 11, 12, 13-year-olds, absolutely, by all means. And for that reason, as a family horror film, I'm going to give it 3 stars.
I'm going to also give it 3.
There we are.
Although I think I actually enjoyed it as much as a 4.
Good lord.
I thought it was for what it was. I thought it was alright. It had a fairly decent story, apart from that massive inconsistency. But that's fine. I can have a look at that.
I don't know if I can really, to be honest, because it's like there are 2 pivotal parts to the story: the lack of children and her being the great granddaughter,
Yeah,
but
true.
they just don't work.
True.
So 3s all around this week.
Indeed.
Are you ready for our story?
At Kroger, no matter where you order free pickup, you get the same great deals as you'd get in store. So you can save when you order during band practice, or at the dog park, or wherever. Start your cart with the Kroger app and save from wherever today. Kroger, fresh for everyone. $35 order minimum. Restrictions may apply. Subject to availability.
Save more on natural and organic items. Just clip your digital coupons on our app and use them up to 5 times in one transaction with your card. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
With Tim Hortons 2 hot breakfast sandwiches for $6 deal, you can mix and match your favorites. Mix and match between savory sausage or naturally hickory smoked bacon. Mix and match between an English muffin or flaky biscuit. Any 2 served with a freshly cracked egg and melted cheese. You can even mix and match how you share it. 1 for you, 1 for them, 2 for them, or 2 just for you. There's no wrong way to mix and match this tasty deal. 2 breakfast sandwiches for just $6. It's time for Tim's. Limited time at participating U.S. restaurants. Single item at regular price. Modifications and tax extra. Additional terms apply.
Yeah, I'm guessing this is going to be a nice, friendly one.
Really nice, friendly episode about love and family. And fuck that. No, it isn't.
I'd just like to preface this. I saw you researching yesterday. I saw how freaked out you were when you finished researching it. So I know it's not going to be like that. I'm just trying to make it better for myself.
No, it isn't. Originally, I was going to do the Chupacabra as
we're not
this
doing that
week's
anymore.
episode, but we're not doing that anymore because we will come back to the Chupacabra, but because during my Chupacabra research, I fell down a hole of looking at this stuff. And interestingly, there exists a map on Reddit that pinpoints all the sightings of this creature that we're going to talk about today. And every sighting on this map, which I'll put a link to in the description of this episode, links to the actual story of the sighting.
Look, I'm not into Bigfoot, okay? We don't have to keep doing this.
You are into Bigfoot. You want to have sex with Bigfoot. If you want to find out why Dan has a thing for Bigfoot, listen to the Patreon episode from last week. But it's not Bigfoot.
Bigfoot.
It's not Bigfoot.
Yeti?
It's not Yeti. Are they not the same thing?
Yes.
Yeah. I thought they were like cousins or something. Are you ready for story number 1?
No.
Well, here we go. Let me preface this by saying that it all happened years ago and some details might be a bit fuzzy. So a while back, some friends and I would get bored and we'd find ways to entertain ourselves. One of these ways was fucking with the local kids. I knew a small grove of trees on the path up to the local golf course that used to have a house in it, as well as some still standing garage and sheds. We made up some monsters that lived out there and got the younger kids to believe it, and it ended up keeping them out of trouble for a few weeks to boot. Unfortunately, after that, things got weird. Beyond the prior events, we'd periodically go out to this grove and explore a bit, find old oil cans and stuff just to pass the time. One night we decided to go out there, and we were just walking into the entrance, gave us chills, and the air grew very cold. Twigs were snapping, cans would fly from the sheds, and we'd catch a glimpse here and there of something out there with us. Something that obviously didn't want us to be there. The best description I can come up with is a creature, roughly 7 or 8 foot tall. A biped, but can run on all fours. And it's stark white.
Freddy!
A few of the times after the initial run-in, we'd go out there, and it would end up with us sprinting down the path to get back to a streetlight. Once something seemed to be standing on the top of the trees. A friend started yelling things at it, and when he turned back to look at me for a second, the thing seemed to have moved from where it was standing all the way across the grove to right next to us. Another ended very quickly when we were walking into the grove and heard a loud snort like a wild boar or something was right next to us. But this is west central Minnesota, and I've lived in this town for 20 years. The only thing I've seen close to a boar are pigs that get brought in from miles away at the county fair. The last encounter was towards the end of winter. Still some snow on the ground. It was the middle of the day and we headed out to look, all of us grouped up to watch from different directions, and nothing really interesting happened. On our way back out, there were footprints in the snow that dwarfed my size 13 shoes. It had a rounded heel and 3 rounded toes, almost looking like a cartoon bear paw, but again, nothing like that in our area, and definitely something we would have seen or heard. Since then, I've run across something tall and white occasionally, usually standing on the edge of a group of trees. Sometimes whatever it is seems to be just watching me. Other times I feel much more terrified, like I need to run as far away as I possibly can. I haven't seen it for a few years, but an Ask Reddit thread I came across about half an hour ago had a comment linking this, and it seemed all too coincidental. The bottom 2 green marks on the map are pretty much right where I am in Minnesota. That's our first story. So what are your thoughts?
I don't know. I wasn't expecting it to end quite as abruptly as that. I was still listening, waiting for the next bit to come.
Don't worry, I've got loads more stories for you.
Yeah, I don't know. It sounded like, I thought it was Frederick rather. Sorry, Freddy's Freddy Krueger, isn't it? Frederick.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a bit odd, doesn't it? It sounds a bit like Bigfoot though, just a white version.
A white version on all fours?
Sometimes Bigfoot... No, they don't.
According to who?
According to...
Bigfoot experts.
Yes.
Cryptozoologists.
Yeah, cryptozoologists. They probably do walk on all fours if they're like ape-like creatures.
So I'm really fascinated by this story, and they're referred to by either 2 things. People either refer to them as the rake, which we know isn't real.
Yeah.
It's not a real story. It was made up on the internet. Or they're referred to as crawlers.
Oh, that's not a nice name.
Because of their ability to move on all fours. And people describe them as having arms and legs the same length. So they are really tall and spindly and can move at ridiculous speeds. So I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And when I looked at this map, there were loads of incidents all over North America.
Wow.
Of sightings of these particular creatures. And this one person has been trawling the internet for various different stories that match the same description. So these people aren't coming and adding these stories to the map. this person is going out and finding the stories and then adding them,
that's
which is interesting. And there were loads of them, loads of them. Some of them were short, some of them were long, and I couldn't get through them all, so I picked the ones that I thought were the scariest.
Okay.
So what are your thoughts so far? So we've got a bipedal creature that can run on all fours. It's really skinny. It's white. It's been sighted at the top of trees. It's been sighted running on all fours. What are your thoughts?
I don't like the thought of it running on all fours because it's a bit creepy, isn't it? Like it's a bit going back to that whole unnatural movement thing, having arms the same length as your legs. Yeah, it's a bit creepy. I don't know what it would be doing, like just hanging out on the tree line watching people.
Don't know. It all seems a little bit sinister.
Yeah, I feel like I need to know more though.
Okay, so let's know some more then, shall we? Story number 2. Growing up in the mountains of North Georgia, camping and hiking were things me and my brother did so often that it was second nature. So anytime Ryan and I had a break from school, we would head straight for the woods. We packed our gear, let our parents know where we were going, and that was that. No questions asked. We decided to camp about midway through Jack's River Trail in the Cohutta Wilderness, and it's a trail we knew fairly well as we had used it a few times before to practice long hikes. We arrived at the trail around lunchtime, parked the car, got our gear out and headed into the woods. We passed a few hikers as we moved along and asked them how the trail looked, and the answer was always the same: wet. Jack's River Trail probably crossed the river 50 times as it went along its 17-mile plus journey, and with the colder temperatures of late fall settling in, it was harder for the trail to stay dry. We moved deeper into the trail and started to look for a place to make camp. This is where Ryan and I made our first mistake. You see, Ryan and I have this rule: we don't camp near people if at all possible. Cole is paranoid, but the last thing we want is for someone to drag us out of our tents and into the woods and never to be seen again. So we always camped a pretty decent way off the trail and in the area that wasn't popular for overnight camping. Roughly 2.5 hours or so later, we found what we thought was the perfect place to set up for the 2 nights that we would be out. We came up to a horseshoe bend and ventured about half a mile off the trail into a clearing and set up. We built a teepee fire for the night and pitched our tents on either side. After setting up and unloading, we decided to walk back to the trail and go exploring around some of the many swimming holes Jack's River had to offer. This was during Thanksgiving break, and I remember being surprised at how few people were on the trail. Maybe it was the weather, or the fact that this was early in the week, but there didn't seem to be anyone hiking, much less staying the night. Around 5 o'clock, Ryan and I headed back to the camp to start our fire, make dinner and settle in for the night. As soon as the sun began to set, the cold rushed in. We added more wood to the fire, sat close and just enjoyed conversation. Ryan was 2 years behind me in school. I was a senior and he was a sophomore, but growing up we always had been close. We always hung out in the same groups, played the same sports, had the same hobbies, etc. Around 9 we were settled comfortably around the fire. I had just texted our mom to let her know that we were safe and getting ready for bed, and I remember we were talking about dreading going into our grandparents' house for Thanksgiving and having the same awkward conversations we had each year with the family we only saw on holidays, when things started to get strange. We were no strangers to sounds in the woods, and these woods were full of animals, from deer to black bears and even the random wild boar. If you're in the woods long enough, you learn to distinguish certain sounds, and what we were hearing I could only chalk up as odd. What Ryan and I heard was what sounded like someone sneaking around slowly just out of eyesight. With an animal walking on 4 legs, you hear a tighter group of steps, but what we were hearing sounded very distinct to what a human sounds like when walking slowly or trying to move without making a sound. I remember we both pulled out our flashlights, shone them in the direction we felt the sounds were coming from, but that was what was so weird. Whenever we would fix our lights on a spot we thought the sounds were coming from, the location of the sound would suddenly change. It was as if there were multiple people walking around us. And that's when the whistling started. At first I thought it was the wind, and I remember thinking maybe the wind is just throwing leaves around and what we were hearing is nothing but the wilderness around us. Ryan looked at me and asked if I was hearing that. I didn't answer and was trying to focus hard on each individual sound. 2 consecutive notes with roughly a 3 to 4 second gap, and then 2 more consecutive notes, over and over and over again. Ryan kept asking if I heard that, and I put my finger to my lips trying to keep him from talking. The fear I felt was incredible. My jaw was tight, my fists were clenched, knowing I wasn't ready for whatever was out there, if it was anything at all. The whistling continued for what felt like forever, but thinking it through, it was maybe 5 minutes when Ryan finally yelled out into the darkness, "Hey!" Quiet. The whistling stopped. The crunching of the leaves stopped. Nothing. I was pissed. I looked at Ryan with a "what the hell" look, and he shrugged his shoulders. "I had to do something," he said. I just shook my head. We sat there in silence for a few minutes when the woods erupted with noise. Something or someone was running in a circle around our campsite. The whistling came back. 2 consecutive notes with the same 3 to 4 second gap, and then 2 more consecutive notes. How could someone whistle this loudly without cracking while also running? I was done. I stood up, shining my flashlight in all directions, trying to catch a glimpse of whatever was screwing with us. Nothing. It felt close enough to touch, but we never saw a thing. That's when the movement stopped, but the whistling was still constant. It was so loud, inhumanly loud. I looked at Ryan and told him to call the police. Now this is the part I will never forget. The part I never like to talk about. When Ryan was on the phone with the dispatcher and telling them our location and what was going on, I stepped around the fire towards my tent. Inside my bag I had a 6-inch fixed blade that I always carried, and thought I would feel a bit more comfortable with it in my hand, more than just my flashlight. As I went to unzip my tent, trying to keep my eyes towards the woods, I heard some movement directly in front of me. I swept my light up in front of me, and for maybe 2 seconds I saw it. Whatever this person or thing was, it was about 5 foot up in a tree. Everything about it was long. Its arms, legs, neck, fingers, everything. And it was fast. As soon as the light hit it, it launched backwards off the tree. I heard it land, but it either jumped an impossible distance or landed in a thicket, because I heard it, but I didn't see it. I don't think I've ever yelled so loud. I ran back to where Ryan was and sat down. He kept asking me what I saw, but I just couldn't answer. I just kept thinking about what I saw. Maybe 10 minutes later, we saw a couple of flashlight beams coming through the woods, and about 3 guys came into view asking if everything was okay. I settled a bit and started asking them if they had seen or heard anything. All they said was they heard a lot of movement and then heard my scream, and that's when they headed in our direction. I tried to explain what had happened without sounding crazy, but it didn't seem to work. One of the guys walked around a bit and came back and said he didn't see anything. Ryan told them that we had called the police, and roughly 30 minutes later a park ranger showed up. Ryan and I explained everything to him, but he just chalked it up to either a curious animal or some campers trying to mess with us. Either way, Ryan and I decided we weren't staying the night. We packed up our stuff and walked out of the woods with the ranger. He took our statement, we got in our car and we drove home. Ryan and I don't talk about what happened that night, but neither of us have been back to the Jacks River Trail, and will probably never go back.
I don't blame him. I wouldn't be going back in a rush either.
I wouldn't. Give me a poltergeist any day. If I was in my camp and it was all Blair Witch and shit, I'd be okay with it. But I do not need this long-necked, long-legged freak up a tree fucking with me. That's what I don't need in my life.
Yeah, not good. I don't understand the not camping near people. I do get it.
I do get it, actually. I would be... Maybe it's because I'm a woman.
Yeah.
That you have different feelings about these things, but I would be really uncomfortable camping in a location with lots of different people, because you're actually really vulnerable in a tent.
I guess it's just a British part of me in that all campsites are camping with loads of people. That's
yeah,
just what
but I think
if
you're out on a trail, if you're out in the woods, it's slightly different.
Yeah.
But I do understand why they wouldn't want to be surrounded by people if they were camping. I'd be really uncomfortable.
This crawler sounds very ape-like to me.
So what do you think?
Monkeys.
Do you think it's like an ape with mange?
Yeah, maybe. Because if you think about gorillas, they have really short legs and long arms. Or arms that are similar length to the legs, rather.
That's true.
And obviously the climbing and the jumping is a very ape-like thing, but not the long neck necessarily.
And not the whistling.
Well, Ewoks whistle. They're kind of apey.
Did you say Ewoks whistle?
Yeah.
I mean, they are a little bit apey, but they're also fictional, so that's a bit of an issue. Although,
I guess they're more
really
berry, actually.
Ewoks,
Ewoks are more berry.
they are like little bears. I guess they're kind of like a cross between a bear and a gorilla, because they've got little gorilla faces, don't they, Ewoks?
But some monkey sounds sound a bit whistly.
That's very true.
But I don't know what type of monkey it would be. It's unlikely to be an escaped captive monkey, is it?
No,
it needs to be something that's been there forever.
And I feel like white skin, and there's very few ape species that have white fur.
But there's albinism in every animal.
That's true.
Is it albinism?
Albinoism. I don't actually know.
That's it, yeah.
So, what was really interesting about this story was the whistling.
Yeah.
And that led me to another story.
Okay.
Which isn't remotely crawler related.
Okay.
But freaked the living shit out of me. I don't even know if I'm ready for this.
Okay. I'm definitely not in that case.
But there's video evidence to go with it.
Oh, great.
So we're going to have to look up a video in a few minutes.
Oh, great.
And it is on the same theme as this whistling situation. Are you ready?
No.
I don't think I am ready for this, actually.
Let's just leave it. We can just move on.
No, do you know what? We have to do it now, because I've got the audio ready. We're going to do this.
Okay.
I've been waiting a long time to tell Reddit the full story of the Whistler. This story requires many details, but it is unexplainable, creepy, and 100% true. And I also have video evidence. When I was about 8 years old, I was walking my dog through the neighbourhood with my mum. It was maybe 11 p.m. We live next to a swamp wooded area on the edge of our neighbourhood in Lansing, Michigan. I remember it being very silent and slightly windy. From down in the swamp, we heard somebody whistling at us. It sounded sort of like a bird, but each whistle was different enough where the lack of consistency made it human-like. The whistle sounded higher, then lower. I can't really describe it. My mum had a concerned, slightly terrified look on her face and grabbed my hand and said that we should go inside quickly. I didn't understand because I was too young, but seeing my mum freak out made me freak out too. But obviously, after a while, I just forgot about it. 2 years later, I was taking out my dog again, at night. There is a large bush that could easily obscure a person behind it just next to the front door. As I was finishing the walk, the whistling noise started again. Same pitches, same inconsistent human-like tones. As soon as I heard it, a chill went down my spine, as I remembered exactly the feeling of seeing my mom terrified, looking down into the swamp at something I couldn't see, but maybe she couldn't see it either. I ran inside as fast as possible. Years went by and I thought about it less and less. I only told a handful of people, and eventually, again, it slipped from my mind. Fast forward to last summer. I'm 24 and started dating a girl called Sarah. We moved out to South Dakota for work. For Independence Day, we decided to go to Pierre and watch the fireworks along the bank of the Missouri River. There was a free camping spot behind a hospital where you could pitch your tent, hang out and see the fireworks up the river. We were near the end of the campground and there were very few people around us. As it was getting dark, the fireworks began. They were pretty far away, so the illumination they brought was very little. Thus, we had to sit right at the edge of the river to be able to see them. A huge thunderhead was moving in and the storm was imminent, so the air seemed electric and the wind was picking up. The atmosphere was eerie, to say the least. The police boats herded all the other boats off to the river and left our area to do that elsewhere. Most of the other campers walked up the river to have a better view of the fireworks, but Sarah and I stayed back and we were drinking tall boys and kicking it. Suddenly we heard the sound of a paddle, methodically dipping into the water. We saw a figure steering a canoe about 20 metres offshore. Sarah decided to go get more beers from the car, leaving me alone to stare at this mystery person. And then, of course, they whistled at me. My entire body was frozen and covered in goosebumps. It was the same whistle from my childhood more than a decade earlier. I looked at the figure, but it was much too dark to discern who it could be. They were wearing a hat. When they were perpendicular to the shore from me, they stopped paddling, turned the canoe to face directly at me, and just whistled. I was so frightened I stood up and shouted at them, "Who are you?" They didn't say anything, just whistled a couple more times, turned the canoe 180 degrees and paddled out of sight. I'm a videographer, so I already had my camera by my side and was taking video of the fireworks. As the canoe was almost out of sight, I grabbed my camera and got a shot of them whistling as they went away. Sarah came back from getting the beers. She was very confused as to why I was so freaked out. When I explained, she was freaked out a bit too. I was convinced we would both be murdered that night. How did this whistling person follow me after 14 years all the way to South Dakota? Was it just a coincidence? Why was it the same whistling noise? Who was that person and where did they go? So many questions unanswered. To this day, I'm more afraid of being outside in the dark where I might hear that whistling again. And I'm open to any explanations. So before you say anything, I'm going to put the audio of the video in. But honestly, just go onto YouTube, look up The Whistler. That's the video. So you need to do that right now. And I'm going to insert the audio for the listeners.
You whistling? See you. Stop it.
Okay, you've just watched the video.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Okay, so I'm freaked out.
Well, you've heard this story before.
I have, yeah.
So when you first read it, were you freaked out by it?
I was freaked out by the story, but it's like one of those. So I used to read a thread on the Bridge 9 record label message boards when they existed, and it was called Creepy Experiences thread, and this is one of the legendary stories that came.
Ah, yeah.
That was repeated on that thread. But I've never seen the video of it, interestingly, but it was the one that everybody refers to when they're like always talking about their favourite things from that thread. The Whistler is one of the most popular stories.
What do you think it is?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I don't like it. I think it's paranormal. I don't think it's a real person.
Do you think it's real?
I think it's real, but putting my wheel hat on, I don't think it's real.
I think it's really interesting, and there was a whole rabbit hole then about the Whistler that was a road I didn't go down. And there was people that were commenting saying, oh, the Whistler is a paranormal entity that warns you of death, blah, 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 or warns you when death is imminent, which is, I mean, interesting for that boy, considering he's heard it 3 times and still not died. But I also think that legends grow out of stories, don't they? So you try and attribute something to a story that you read. If that's real, it can fuck right off because it is so unsettling.
But it's that it's the same as that from Hereditary, isn't it? It's that normal noise that's just not,
and it's just
unnatural
out of
sounding.
Context, because
that whistling is really like
yeah,
it's
just horrible,
a freaky noise anyway.
But then I wonder if the last story that we read with Ryan was influenced by the story of the Whistler, or if the story of the Whistler was influenced by that story with Ryan. Do you know what?
I don't think there's any influence between them.
Do you think there's any link?
Nope.
Do you think it's the same creature?
Nope.
Do you think the crawler can row a boat?
Nope. I don't. Okay, so I'm freaked out by it. I don't like it. I think it's real. However, if I had to put myself in my will hat, which I'm tending to do quite a lot these days, that video is super debunkable.
Why?
Because that whistling could be taking place behind the camera the whole time.
Yeah, that's very true. I will give you
There
that.
is nothing on that lake at all until right at the end, and that could just be a passing person that he's done zoomed in on to go, oh look, it was someone there.
Oh, fair enough. I mean, there's a lot of things that are like very convenient, like, oh, it was really dark and the fireworks weren't that bright and blah 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 blah. So I get what you're saying. There's something that just unsettles me so much.
It's really unsettling. That's the right word for it. That story is really unsettling. And I think that's why it caught on so much on the thread that I was reading.
Like, I was thinking about it yesterday after I read it, and I was going, what would I do now if I heard that whistling? Because it doesn't seem to be threatening. Like, there's no... But I mean, there's nothing... He doesn't seem to be in imminent danger. Like, if you were ever going to attack somebody on a lakeside where they're isolated, or on the bed of a river or wherever they were, sounds like a pretty perfect opportunity. Or when he's 10 years old out walking his dog, sounds like a really good opportunity. But nothing negative happens to him. It's just the sound.
But maybe that's the point, though. Maybe it's just the fact of letting him know that he's still there.
But why? Why
Because
is he letting him know that he's still there?
Because the say it's a human, which I don't think it is, but say it's the same person.
I think it is a human.
But say it's that would... Yeah, but what's the likelihood of someone being able to follow him like that consistently, unless it's a relative?
Or it's a legitimate stalker.
That's commitment, though, isn't it?
I mean, that is commitment. Generally, the point of stalkers is that they're very committed to their stalking.
So let's say it is a real person, though.
Yeah.
That real person, it may be at a stage now where they are a 50 middle-aged man, and this is now a young, fit guy, right? So actually, the physical threat of attacking them would ruin the fear.
Yeah.
Holding that sense of impending doom over someone is far more terrifying, I think. Just letting them know that you're there.
So if it's paranormal then, because you think it's paranormal, what is it?
Demons.
Seems a bit...
Or Ewoks.
I don't think Ewoks are paranormal. I think it's a bit tame for a demon, though, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's just like I don't know. I don't like it. Like the story itself is creepy. It's that.
Gives me the heebie-jeebies.
But it's so much more powerful just to have this sense of like,
I'm watching you.
Yeah.
I know where you are all the time.
Absolutely.
And I can just appear in your life whenever.
Yeah.
And rowing a fucking canoe down a river, whistling at where you can't get to him as well. That's very convenient. So if that was like somewhere in the distance on land, you can try and chase that person down.
Yeah,
they're in a canoe on the middle of a river. What are you going to do? Swim out after them?
Part of me thinks it's lucky that they're not in a state where they regularly open carry guns, because I reckon there's fairly few people who probably would have a shot.
That's it. I'm just going to have a shot. Fuck it. I don't care. Do you want one more story?
Not if it's like that one. Is it? Are we going back to the crawlers, or is it different?
We're going back to crawlers.
Okay.
And we're a bit all over the place this episode, but I could not put that story in.
No, that's creepy.
And we're back to crawlers, and it is a short one.
Yeah, I don't really want to do it, but let's go for it.
Last night, I was home alone.
Wow, that was short.
I hate you. Last night, I was home alone. I'm 16 years old, and my parents work pretty late and don't get home until 3 or 4 a.m. I'm used to it now. No siblings, just a dog and 5 cats. So I get the house to myself. I'm laying on the couch watching TV, and I notice something out of the corner of my eye. Oof. Another pair of eyes looking at me. Oof. At first, I just assumed it was an animal or something. We get possums a lot at night, and I didn't really think about it. 5 minutes go by, and I hear this weird clawing at the door. My living room is fairly large. TV is in front of me. Then a couple of feet away is the dining room table and a sliding glass door that leads to my back porch and my yard.
Oh no.
This thing was on the porch. I got up to investigate, first by flicking the light switch on, and immediately it scrambled off the porch. It seemed to be scared of light, so I turned off the light and grabbed a flashlight. It wasn't there, so I just assumed it was an animal and went back to the sofa. An hour goes by and I hear this loud shriek coming from the yard. This time, getting scared, I jumped up and ran with the flashlight. I dimmed it down by taking my index finger and my middle finger and kind of coiling it around the light, still making it visible but not as bright. I shone it around the yard and the thing was still there, but this time it was eating something.
Oh no.
It looked to be small, like a rabbit or a young deer.
Okay.
Where I live, there's tons of coyotes, so maybe one had strayed. But again, that shriek was awful and not something I've ever heard from a coyote's mouth. This thing was human, or at least close to it. The skin was black and kind of wrinkled. It had long limbs and seemed to be in a crouched position most of the time, but it was extremely fast. I got scared and shone the light at it directly, and it again screamed and dashed off into the woods. I stayed up until my parents came home. I didn't tell them yet, just in case it was something silly. So this person posted this story looking for advice.
He needs to count his cats. He really needs to count his cats.
It wasn't a cat. No, it definitely wasn't a cat. No, it just wasn't.
Okay.
Don't think like that.
Okay.
This beast definitely did not kill any one of his cats. Oh no. Bim, close your ears.
Skinwalkers?
This is the thing with all of these stories, is that people are like, they're skinwalkers. That's what they are.
It makes sense though, wouldn't it?
Why would it make sense?
Well, because they have to like feast, don't they? That's part of the law, isn't it? And they're taking on like 100-year-old bodies.
Oof.
Like thousands-year-old bodies. In fact, my math skills are not very good, but
I don't know why this concept, so the concept of the Whistler first of all, and this concept of crawlers freaks me out so much.
Is it Wendigo?
That was another suggestion about Wendigos, but I don't know.
I think we need to talk to that lady with Frederick,
Susan,
and ask her if she can get in contact with Frederick and ask him if he's been...
No, I'm not gonna put that on her in case it's actually evil.
It's not evil, he likes her.
But the other thing is that Super Duperstitious did an episode about crawlers. And they posted a link to a video. Do you remember I showed you this video? Of a crawler running across a motorway in Essex.
In Essex?
Yeah, so we don't have... Is there an Essex in America? Potentially.
Yeah, there is.
See, we don't have, obviously, Native American lore, do we?
No.
But I'll post the video link in the description for that, but it's absolutely horrific. And it's taken from like a motorway CCTV traffic camera, and it is vile.
Yeah, it's not good.
It's not good at all. So there seems to be mounting evidence for these things. So whether or not,
It's
like
just
we
the
said...
gates of hell are open, that's why.
It's what?
Because the gates of hell are open.
Again, you always do this, where I just don't expect the words that come out of your mouth. Right. Should have known that.
Yeah.
That's what it is. That is your foot under the table, isn't it?
Yeah. What did you think it was?
I don't know. I just got really panicked that it was just a crawler under the table.
Providing you with a nice footrest.
I don't know why this freaks me out so much. It's so not me to be
It's
this
the
freaked out by
unnatural
something.
movement again, I think.
I think it might be. Ugh.
But why is this one black and the other one white?
Why are you so racist?
No, I'm just saying. Like, it's unusual,
I don't know.
isn't
Maybe
it?
it's not the same creature.
Thing.
Maybe it's not the same beast. I just thought it was an interesting story. Don't know why, if this creature is afraid of light, it would be scratching at the door to get in. Doesn't make sense to me.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not afraid of light though. Maybe it just didn't want to be like seen.
Maybe, yeah, didn't want to be physically seen. It
Yeah.
seems to be a thing with this creature that doesn't want to be physically seen, which would...
But imagine if it was caught though. It'd just be like Pete's Dragon all over again.
What's Pete's Dragon?
You know that children's film where they find the dragon in the forest and they try and put it on display and
Nope.
he just wants to live in peace.
No idea.
Oh.
Well, I'm sorry, Crawler, if you want to live in peace, A, stop being freaky, B, stop being seen by people,
Man's gotta
C,
live.
stop whistling, D, don't be killing and eating creatures in people's front gardens. Do
Man's
it in the
gotta
privacy
live.
of your own home.
Man's got to live.
Right, okay.
Man's got to live.
We got some new reviews. Do you want to hear them?
Yes.
Review number 1 comes from Spider Graves.
Spider Graves.
And it is entitled Listening from El Paso, Texas, a visiting place, in brackets. I love the podcast, and now my kids do too. They're 11 and almost 9. There's the devil story that I'll share soon. Gotta take these guys to school. Thank you. Also, mad that your kids are listening.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I would never would have slept again if I'd heard these stories.
I'm also not entirely sure that our language is family friendly, but
My language.
oh yeah,
Rein that back in.
just inclusive here.
And our second review is from RC Dev, and it is entitled Extremely Enjoyable. So glad I found this podcast. Wonderful content and it just being the introduction. Great rapport between the podcasters. I'm so looking forward to more. First review I've ever written, and I've been listening to podcasts going on 5 years. Oh, that's really... Thank you that you've taken the effort to do that. And the last one comes from Fun Cupcake, and it is entitled The Best Spine-Tingling Podcast Ever. Emma and Dan do such an amazing job sharing creepy and haunting real-life ghost stories. They have on occasion kept me up at night. I'm 100% with Dan in that I believe almost everything I hear when it comes to the paranormal, but having Emma's logical take and explanation after each story helps me cope. I absolutely love this podcast. Keep those creepy stories coming, guys. I just can't get enough. Thank you all so much, because you are stunningly gorgeous, beautiful people.
I like to hear people's takes on it as well. Like, it's interesting, like, the different things that different people get out of it.
Or that people pick up about us as people, which I also find really interesting.
Yeah.
This week we were trending #1 on Podcast Addict. That's mental. And also down to you guys. So thank you so much. And to all you thousands of people listening, which is a really weird thing to think about. Thank you for just listening to us. This is something we do because we love it.
Yeah.
It has never really been a chore. The only time it's been a chore is when I've been really hungover. And I'm just gonna do a public service announcement and publicly apologise for the washing machine in last week's episode. Okay? So many people have messaged me. I was really hungover. Dan said, let's not record until the washing machine is finished. And in my hungover fugue, I was like, no, nobody will hear it, it'll be fine. And then I was too hungover to be able to edit it out. So I'm sorry, it was a washing machine and it was my fault. So I apologise. But thank you all so much. This has never been a chore. We absolutely love it. I love speaking to you guys on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, or whatever. So if you want to come and talk to us, you can find me on Instagram at Real Life Ghost Stories. You can find Dan on Instagram
at 50p Movie Club.
You can find us on Facebook. So go give our Facebook page a like. It is Real Life Ghost Stories Podcast. And then join our secret group, which is RLGS Supergroup. And the password is Dan and Emma. Please come and join us there, because people share things all the time and it is amazing. You can also talk to us on Twitter, which is at
Real Ghost Pod. And
if you have a story that you want to send us, you can send us your story into reallifeghoststoriespodcast@gmail.com. And finally, if you want more delicious content, some of it is R-rated. Is that the phrase?
Yeah.
Like sex content.
That's R for all those people that...
Oh, whatever.
Some of it is
R-rated. Lol. Then you can sign up to our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/Real Life Ghost Stories. For $5 a month, you get an extra episode of paranormal goodness a week. And for $2 a month, you get access to the entire back catalogue of 50p Movie Club. Dan, what's 50p Movie Club?
It is a podcast which I do with Will, who has been guested on the show, who has been a guest on the show. And I choose a movie from the bargain section of a shop, and we watch it and we talk about it. And they're normally really bad movies.
And on that note, thank you all so much. We love you, we adore you, and we shall see you next week.
Peace out.
With Tim Hortons 2 hot breakfast sandwiches for $6 deal, you can mix and match your favorites. Mix and match between savory sausage or naturally hickory smoked bacon. Mix and match between an English muffin or flaky biscuit. Any two served with a freshly cracked egg and melted cheese. You can even mix and match how you share it. One for you, one for them, two for them, or two just for you. There's no wrong way to mix and match this tasty deal. 2 breakfast sandwiches for just $6. It's time for Tim's. Limited time at participating U.S. restaurants. Single item at regular price. Modifications and tax extra. Additional terms apply.
At Kroger, no matter where you order free pickup, you get the same great deals as you'd get in-store. So you can save when you order during band practice, or at the dog park, or wherever. Start your cart with the Kroger app and save from wherever today. Kroger, fresh for everyone. $35 order minimum. Restrictions may apply. Subject to availability.
Save more on natural and organic items. Just clip your digital coupons on our app and use them up to 5 times in one transaction with your card. Kroger, fresh for everyone.